Hello, and welcome to another video. This time, get to know your profession, a basic guide to engineer. And the keen ears amongst you will have noticed straight away that I didn't say engineer or scrapper. Unfortunately, for this profession, the elite specialization doesn't really add much in terms of, well, anything in PvE. There is something I might mention a little bit later on, where you can sort of add scrapper in for a little bit of utility, but mostly you're going to be just using base engineer for this profession. But first, a warning. Wait. Okay, maybe we should upgrade this warning to a super mega death warning of doom. Okay, maybe that was a little over the top, but this is a bit of a special basic guide, because although it is very definitely aimed at basic players, it also contains a lot of information that is very difficult to trivialize. And as such, it is kind of an intermediate guide, but it's straight from nothing to intermediate. Anyone who is familiar with this profession will, by its very nature, have a deep grasp of all the concepts I'm going to discuss in this video. So it is still aimed at beginning players. However, it is a lot harder than other professions, and as such, I felt I needed to do a long-winded warning, and I realise I've been talking for too long now, so I'll just get on with it. So, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of the profession, the skills, the specializations, gear, and just generally how you play the profession, and all of its complexities. Unfortunately, I can't really sort of skip over any of its complexities, so we're going to have to go through it all. Might be a bumpy ride. Stick with us. So let's go over the pros and cons of the profession. For pros, we have it is the highest condition damage in the game. It's a nice pro. It has an enormous asterisk right next to it, however. The target must be stationary to achieve these numbers. And this is quite a big asterisk. And you'll see why later on when we're explaining things, why the target has to remain still. This works in several areas of the game, but not in others. And secondly, it's fun. Someone told me you're attempting to have fun. Ha, you are a little rascal, aren't you? Oh, don't be like that. You've picked the right profession to have fun. But first you must learn a lot of things. Are you a bit sick of this little 1950s instructional video and want to get back to the actual guide? Well, good. So, on to the cons of the profession. Unfortunately, there are literally too many to note. There is very little reason to actually play the engineer in this game at the moment, unless you enjoy it. As I said before, it does have the highest condition damage on a stationary target though, which can be an effective thing. It's very, very specific circumstances. But it's just not the best at anything. So I'm actually just not gonna scrap this whole cons list, and we'll just move on to the gear, and we'll talk about that. So for gear, what do we have? Well, I would point out first of all that I'm pretty sure I don't have the most optimal arrangement of stuff that you can actually get in the game. The important figure is the ones here. So our base condition duration, as you see if I just move the mouse aside, is 36.4. However, the increased duration of apply conditions, for bleeding it's 69.40, and for burning it's 69.40. So the perfect figure there is as close to 70% as you can get it. And this is a nice level that I've accepted it at, because what we're going to be doing later is adding food, which brings both of those figures up to 99.40%. So the absolute cap, which is plus 100% duration on any particular condition. So that's the important figure. Now I'm just going to go over the gear I use to get there, and if you're interested in like googling what the absolute best is, you can find that out. I think it's just 1 or 2 Sinister pieces where I have Vipers and back, and the same in reverse. So what do we have for our gear? Well, the gear is all Vipers, and it is the Yasith Ascended prefix, and it's with the rune of the Berserker. And then we have the same for pistols, but we have the Sigil of Bursting and the Sigil of Malice. Technically speaking, the Sigil of Geomancy would give you more damage if instead of the Sigil of Bursting. However, a lot of times you'll be using the Engineer, you won't be able to stay in range for the Sigil of Geomancy proc. So I wanted a consistent bonus on that pistol, so that's why I've gone for that particular Sigil. And then over here we have just a random back piece. I found a bit of toughness on there, maybe not optimal, but at least it has the high level condition damage. And then we have Sinister, and then I have the Mortar Loop set to Yasith. Sorry, like Vipers stats essentially. So that's the gear. Vipers, Sinister, and then all Vipers to get that condition duration up to basically 70%. So for specializations, what do we have? We have explosives, firearms, and tools. As always, if you like, you can pause the video, copy the traits, and I'll put a link on the screen now to skip the explanations of the traits. But let's go through them now. Explosives, we have glass cannon, damage increase while above the health threshold. So despite the fact that this is a condition build to begin with, it, first and foremost I should say, it also does a lot of direct damage, particularly your grenades and explosives. So this is a nice damage increase to your direct damage. Deal more damage to targets with vulnerability, shaped charge, exactly the same thing. Another 7% damage. This will affect your power damage only, it will not affect your condition damage. However, it is a very nice damage bonus. And then shrapnel, explosives have a chance to cripple and cause bleeding. So this is something that does cater to the fact that we are a condition build. This will add a 20-second bleed every time you cause an explosion, which there'll be lots of explosions in as you're running this build. So, moving on to firearms, chemical rounds. Your pistol skills have increased condition duration, and you might be thinking to yourself, I mentioned earlier that the condition duration caps off at 100%, and that's what you're aiming for in your gear. This is completely separate stat. I don't know how they work it out, but a lot of traits just add to the condition duration. This is a separate stat entirely. So all of your pistol skills will have 50% increased duration, which is an enormous boost to some of these skills. Pinpoint distribution. You gain condition damage based on your precision, so just converting some crit chance over to condition damage, always worthwhile. And incendiary power. Burning you apply lasts longer, and your critical hits inflict burning. So when you crit, which will be a lot of the time, you'll get that burning damage, but more importantly, your burn is 33% longer. And again, that, well, not again, but that is included in the figure that we mentioned earlier. So you know how I mentioned in the gear, my condition duration was at 36, but my burning duration was at 69. So that's where that comes from. And then tools. We have static discharge. Hit multiple foes with arcs of chain lightning when you use a tool belt skill. So these are the tool belt skills. You'll be using them a lot, and every time you do, you get this static discharge, which bounces between targets and does a little bit of damage. Long focused powder pack. Sorry, takedown round is the name of the actual trait. Striking your foe above the health threshold places a delayed explosive charge on them. So nice little damage buff to them. It's every little helps. And then adrenal implant. Endurance regeneration is increased, so that's just a nice endurance regeneration bonus, and that helps you keep this up as well. Excessive energy. It's a little minor trait, it's worth mentioning. While at full endurance, you deal additional damage. So try not to dodge when you don't have to on this profession, because it will affect your end results. I do want to make a quick shout out to a slight change you can make to this build that will include the scrapper line. So what we're going to be doing is removing tools, because there's a few things here, but there's not enormous increases in your damage. I mean, this is the biggest change, but in a lot of fights you're going to be dodging a lot anyway, so you're not going to have this bonus up a lot of the time. So what you can do is you can change this out for scrapper, and we're going to be using recovery matrix. You use your healing skill, temporarily reduces the damage you receive, so it's a nice little survivability buff. We're going to be using rapid regeneration, rapidly regenerate health when affected by swiftness or super speed. So this is a nice little survivability buff as well. And here, a adaptive armor. You need to be careful with traits that add toughness, because they will, if you're doing raiding, then you need to make sure that your toughness is low, otherwise you become the tank of the group. In other situations, this is just very useful. So what we've got here is a line that is hugely survivable, at the expense of maybe 1 or 2 small damage losses. But the important one it gives you is function gyro. And this is a very, very nice utility skill. And essentially what it does is it allows you to res people from range. And that is a huge, huge skill in the game. And they've given it to Scrapper. There's this little thing floating above my head. You might be able to see this here. And essentially, you can res people from range, and it's a very useful trait to have. So this is worth thinking about. But as I said, most of the time, you'll be using tools and the traits like this. But yeah, I thought I'd make that honourable mention of Scrapper there. You don't change any of the utility skills if you're using Scrapper. It just everything stays exactly the same. So let's take a moment to talk about the engineer profession in general and the utility skills we're using and why we're using them. So, if you're not familiar with the engineer is built around these things called kits. And essentially what you do is, like, this is the grenade kit, for example. You equip the grenade kit and it changes you can see my guy's got a little bag of grenades now. And it changes your weapon skills to those. And then I use the bomb kit, and it changes my weapon skills to all of these bombs. And then I use the flamethrower, and my guy's a little equipped with his flamethrower now, and all my skills are flamethrower skills. So, also there's the mortar kit as well. Essentially, the design of this, because if you see these things, they recharge like instantly, basically. The design of this means one thing. It means that you can cycle through these kits to get the highest damaging ability skills very quickly and only rely on their internal cooldown. So for example, this one, Firebomb, has a 10-second cooldown. I could put it down, puts this Firebomb around you, and this cooldown will persist even if the kit is off. So you see there, the cooldown was 10 seconds. So what people have worked out is that by swapping through the kits really fast, and this is where the complexity of the profession comes in, you can get all of the high damaging abilities from all of the kits running all together to really get some nice numbers in terms of condition damage. So what actually are we using for starters? Well, as I mentioned before, we're using the grenade kit, the bomb kit, and the flamethrower. And our elite skill, I'll talk about the elite skill first, is the mortar kit. And the heal skill is the healing turret. So I'll talk about the healing turret a bit later on and how you use that. But I thought I'd mention the skills right now and why you use them and why the complexity of this class is what it is. It's because of the design. These kits, changing between them, getting the highest damaging abilities and swapping out to the next one, and only relying on the actual cooldown of the skills, means that swapping kits fast and using skills in those kits fast is essentially how the engineer works. So there's that. Let's go into a little bit of the explanation of how we use this. Come to the aerodrome. I'm not going to go through actual rotations on this profession, like how you're supposed to do it from start to finish. Instead, I'm going to talk through why the engineer uses what skills. So, like, you have a basic understanding of how the profession works, and you know why these things are why they are. And then you can go out there when you get a bit more serious about the profession and find some actual rotations and follow that to a T. So as I spoke earlier, we are using kits. So firstly, I'm going to go through the kits and we're going to see what skills are useful in the kits. As I said earlier, the kits, you can use all of the abilities, all of the good abilities in a kit and then swap out quickly. So let's do that first. So let's look at the pistol for starters, which I guess is the base kit of the engineer, which is your actual weapons. And let's have a look at the skills. So we're using pistol, and blowtorch is the most valuable skill there. As you can see there, burning at 200 distance, 22.598 K damage, which is insane from one ability. That's a huge damaging skill. It's really important, obviously, as you see there, to use this at point blank range. So I'm just going to show you there, just basically one ability, and it's doing by itself 3.5k burn for a good length of time. So that's just a blowtorch. And then we have static shot. That's a little confusion. So you can see here the confusion ticking away. If the thing you're shooting at uses a skill as well, it'll do extra damage, of course. And then poison dart volley. So this fires 5 darts, and each one will do that much poison. So, and you're actually noticing the burn proc I'm getting from this trait here as well. Your critical hits inflict burning, so it's not just the poison, which you see is still ticking away. There's also that on the critical hit. So those are the 3 skills that are worth using in pistol. So we'll now go through to the grenade kit. So for the grenade kit, the auto attack is a reasonable damage skill. These are targeted abilities, so you can see that it throws at wherever the mouse is. But the auto attack, as I said, is slightly worth using in certain circumstances. But there are 3 high damage ability skills here that are worth focusing. So shrapnel grenade. This is one of your highest damaging abilities. You see, it throws 3 grenades, and each one of them will do that bleed. So you'll get 3 stacks of bleed for 3,400 each, which, you know, it's about 12,000. So it's really nice ability. Sorry, not 12,000, more like 10,000. But and poison grenade is another nice skill here. So that throws 3 poison grenades for 13.5 seconds or 13.25 seconds of poison each grenade, and then frost grenade. This is interesting because it's worth using because of its direct damage as opposed to its conditioned damage. So frost grenade is also worth using in the grenade kit. So that's the grenade kit. In the bomb kit, there are 2 skills that are worth using. Firebomb is one of the highest damaging abilities that the engineer has. It's because it pulses 4 times, so you get the burning 4 times on your target, and so it makes this huge fire field that you'll see here, which then pulses, causing a lot of burning. So very high damaging ability skill, and it's on a very low cooldown. So this is one of your highest ones. And when you're in the bomb kit as well, using the concussion bomb is the other bomb that is actually very useful in this kit. So that's the bomb kit. And onto the flamethrower. So there's 2 abilities in the flamethrower that are worth using. This is also a very high damaging skill. It pulses for 10 seconds. So if I just put this on the target, you can see here it's actually going to keep adding burn, and the number's going to keep climbing for a large portion of time. So just that ability has done that much damage. Huge damage from this skill. And while you're in the Flamethrower as well, this is also worth using it. And it says push back foes and projectiles with a hot blast of air. Obviously that can be annoying on some mobs that actually move, but on mobs that don't, you'll just see a nice little bit of burning, which is nice. So those are the abilities on the Flamethrower. And then moving swiftly on to the Mortar, there's just one ability that is worth using on the Mortar, and that's Poison Gas Shell. So again, these are targeted abilities, and that's the only one that's worth using. And it's a persistent poison field, and you see the burn that comes out as well. But it's not one of the higher damaging abilities that the Engineer has, but it's nice that when you run out of other cooldowns, you can swap to the Mortar kit and use that ability. So that's the abilities in the kits that are worth using. So I'm going to put a graphic up on the screen now, which just highlights what I've just been through, the various skills in the kits that are worth using. And then I'm just going to essentially show you just some basic switching between the kits and some skill usage, just to see what it kind of looks like when you're done. So we're going to start with incendiary ammo. We're going to use blowtorch up close, throw grenades, plant a bomb, use the grenade kit skills, use the bomb kit skills, go back to pistol, blowtorch is almost up, throw a couple grenades, use the firebomb again, use the flamethrower, and you might be able to tell it's been a while since I've done this, because I am a little out of practice on the actual rotations. But as I said before, when you're serious about playing Engineer, go out there and find some actual rotations and get onto them. But you get the idea of what I'm doing. I'm switching quickly between kits. I'm using the damaging abilities, and then in my head I have this sort of idea of when things are back up. You might have noticed I actually switched into the bomb kit when Firebomb wasn't off cooldown once in that little demonstration. That's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid switching into kits when things are off, when things are still cooling down. But you get the hang of that the more you play the profession. But yeah, essentially that's it. And as I said, like when you get a bit more confident, go out there and find actual rotations, and then come back to the class, because once you start nailing it, you start seeing some impressive numbers, and it's really fun to play. Just going to make a quick shout out to a option, and it's at the bottom of the options page. It's called Snap Ground Target to Current Target. So I currently got this off. I'm just going to demonstrate with grenades. I can throw grenades anywhere with this off. This can be tricky when you're trying to target something quickly during fast rotations. So when I was learning this profession, I put this particular option on, and this means whenever you have a enemy targeted, you can see here, like, you can fire it off to the side, but as soon as it's slightly in the area of the target, it snaps to the target, and it means you just have to press the abilities. You don't have to worry about targeting at all. Everything will hit your intended target. So sort of heat-seeking grenades type thing. You do have to be a bit careful with that if the target is moving, because it will fire it where the target is now. So that will often mean that if the target is moving, you will throw it behind the target. But it's a good training wheels setting to turn on while you're learning the profession, and then once you get good at it, turn it back off again, because it will put you in trouble in certain situations, as I said, with moving, and there are certain situations where you have to throw AoEs not at your target, and then snapping to target can be an issue. So just a quick mention of that. So, something that requires its own section is to take a look at the healing skill we use on Engineer. And when you compare the numbers to other healing skills, you might think, well, some of the other ones are more impressive. This one in particular, healing when taking lethal damage, 12,000 heal, just like, wow, that's really nice. However, there is a reason that all engineers take healing turret. It's because of the cleansing burst skill combined with the F1 skill, which I'll show you in a second. So, cleansing burst overcharges your healing turret, supplying a burst of healing that cures two conditions. So, none of that's really that important. The important thing is the little thing down at the bottom, which you might be able to read beneath radius. It says combo field water. And if you're not aware of how combo fields work in this game, it's worth checking them out on the wiki. But I'll just briefly say that when you have a combo field water, water is the healing combo field, essentially. If you leap through it, you get a heal. If you shoot through it, you get a healing bolt. And if you blast it, you get a Aoe Heal. So what we want to achieve with this healing skill is the Aoe Heal. And the way you do it is when you have used your healing turret, your F1 skill will change from this regenerating mist to destroy turret and make a blast finisher. So we're going to use Q twice, and then we're going to use F1 to proc the healing burst, and you'll see the word healing burst come up. Area healing, rather. So that's what we were aiming for. That area healing, and that by itself will do another 1.2, but more importantly it'll do another 1.2 to everybody around you because it's an area of heal. So this is just something that every engineer goes through the process of learning. I am going to just do a quick shout out to this profession. Like, this will probably be my least viewed basic guide. Engineer doesn't really get a lot of love in this game. It's really fun to play. It always has been. It's been one of my favorites, even though I don't actually get to play it much. It's unfortunate. I feel that Engineer will probably be balanced a lot better in the future. And we have that to look forward to, us die-hard engineers. And I highly recommend making it, if not for just the fun of it. And, what's a game for if it's not for fun? So, that's my little ode to Engineer. And there's really not much else to say except thanks for watching. Tell a friend.